Most people believe that if you want to produce enough meat to feed a family, you need acres of land, a few cattle, maybe a flock of chickens, a large barn, expensive equipment, and a feed bill that seems to grow every single month. But hidden away in small backyard sheds, quiet barns, and family homesteads across America is an animal that quietly challenges everything we've been taught about raising meat. It doesn't need 10 acres. It doesn't need expensive machinery. It doesn't even make much noise. Yet one small breeding group can produce hundreds of pounds of lean meat every single year, enough to feed an average family of 5. And strangely, almost nobody raises it anymore. Not because it stopped working, not because it became unhealthy, not because it was difficult to care for. It simply disappeared from public attention. Today, if you walk into most farm supply stores and ask about this rabbit, there's a good chance the employees have never even seen one. Many new homesteaders have never heard its name. Some assume it went extinct. Others confuse it with entirely different breeds. But those few who still raise it often refuse to switch to anything else, because once they understand what this rabbit can do, nothing else seems quite as practical. That raises an interesting question. How can one of the most productive meat rabbits in American history become one of its best-kept secrets? The answer begins more than 100 years ago. Not in America, but in Europe. At the beginning of the 20th century, fur was one of the world's most valuable natural materials. Luxury coats made from wild chinchilla pelts sold for extraordinary prices. The problem was simple. Wild chinchillas were tiny. Producing a single coat required dozens upon dozens of animals. Demand grew faster than nature could supply them. Breeders across Europe began asking an unusual question. Could they develop a domestic rabbit with fur that looked remarkably similar to the famous chinchilla? After years of careful breeding, they succeeded. The new rabbit displayed something extraordinary. Its fur wasn't simply gray. Each individual hair contained multiple color bands. Near the skin, a soft slate blue color, then a pale pearl band, then darker gray, finally, a delicate black tip. When sunlight touched the coat, the colors blended into a shimmering silver appearance unlike almost any other domestic rabbit. People immediately noticed. The rabbit became known simply as the chinchilla rabbit. Its appearance spread rapidly across Europe. Shows featured it. Breeders competed for it. Families admired it. But in America, someone saw even greater potential. Rather than focusing only on beautiful fur, American breeders wondered something entirely different. What if this rabbit could also become one of the world's finest meat animals? Among the most important breeders was Edward H. Stahl, often remembered as one of the pioneers of America's rabbit industry. Instead of accepting the smaller European version, he carefully crossed it with larger commercial breeds. Generation after generation, he selected rabbits that grew faster, produced heavier bodies, maintained excellent mothers, raised healthy litters, and still carried that remarkable silver coat. Years of patient breeding eventually produced something entirely new: the American chinchilla. Larger, heavier, stronger. Purpose-built not only for beautiful pelts, but for feeding families. Its popularity exploded. By the late 1920s, thousands upon thousands were being registered every year. County fairs proudly displayed them. Farm magazines recommended them. Homesteads across America relied on them. For nearly 3 decades, the American chinchilla became one of the country's most respected production rabbits. If you had asked experienced rabbit breeders during that period which breed they trusted most, many would have pointed directly toward the American chinchilla. The reasons quickly became obvious. Adult bucks commonly reached between 9 and 11 pounds. Does often weighed 10 to 12. They possessed broad shoulders, deep loins, heavy hindquarters packed with muscle. Unlike some giant breeds carrying heavy bone, much of that weight became usable meat. Young fryers reached processing size surprisingly quickly. Around 8 to 10 weeks after birth, many already weighed 5 to 6 pounds live. After processing, each rabbit typically produced around 3 pounds of lean, mild meat. Tender, high in protein, naturally low in fat. Many families compared its flavor somewhere between chicken and turkey. Others described it as one of the mildest meats available. Even people who claimed not to enjoy rabbit often changed their minds after tasting properly prepared American chinchilla. Yet meat alone wasn't what impressed experienced homesteaders. The mothers themselves became legendary. A good doe frequently raised 8, 9, sometimes 10 healthy kits in a single litter. She cared for them attentively, protected them, produced abundant milk. Many experienced breeders joked that raising American chinchillas felt less like managing livestock and more like partnering with remarkably dependable mothers. One healthy doe often produced 4 successful litters each year without excessive strain. Imagine those numbers for a moment. 8 kits, 4 litters, more than 30 young rabbits from a single mother annually. Multiply that across several does. Suddenly, the freezer begins filling far faster than most people expect. And that's where the title of this story begins making sense. Could one small breeding group really feed a family of 5? Let's do the math. Suppose you maintain 3 healthy breeding does alongside 1 buck. Each doe raises 4 litters annually. Each litter averages 8 surviving kits. That's 96 young rabbits every year. Even allowing for natural variation, you're still looking at nearly 300 pounds of dressed meat. 300 pounds. Produced from animals requiring only a fraction of the space needed by cattle, or pigs, or even many backyard chicken operations. The numbers surprise almost everyone hearing them for the first time. Perhaps even more remarkable, those rabbits don't demand enormous barns. Many successful breeders comfortably maintain their entire breeding colony inside a modest garden shed. Proper ventilation, clean cages, fresh water, shade during hot weather, protection from predators. Beyond those basics, the system remains surprisingly simple. Unlike noisy roosters, rabbits stay remarkably quiet. Neighbors often have no idea they're even there. For suburban homesteaders, that alone makes them attractive. But another advantage quietly changed everything for many experienced keepers: feed. Most beginners assume rabbits require expensive commercial pellets throughout their entire lives. Pellets certainly have their place, especially for growing kits and nursing mothers. But experienced breeders discovered something generations earlier. Rabbits evolved eating plants, not processed feed. Throughout spring and summer, many traditional keepers dramatically reduced feed costs using common forage growing almost everywhere. Dandelions, white clover, plantain, chickweed, willow leaves, blackberry vines, garden trimmings, sunflower leaves, carrot tops, radish greens, pea vines. Plants many homeowners throw away every week suddenly become valuable feed. Perhaps the greatest favorite among experienced rabbit raisers is comfrey. Once established, this remarkable perennial returns year after year. One planting can continue producing for decades. Cut it, it grows back. Cut it again, it returns once more. Some experienced homesteaders harvest it 4, 5, even 6 times each growing season. Properly managed forage patches can reduce commercial feed bills dramatically. Instead of purchasing every pound of nutrition, nature quietly provides much of it free. Of course, responsible feeding still requires balance. Fresh water remains essential. Growing kits and nursing does benefit greatly from quality pellets, and certain plants should always be avoided. But understanding forage changes the economics entirely. Suddenly, raising meat rabbits no longer feels like constantly buying feed. Instead, the garden begins feeding the rabbits begin feeding the family, and before long, the rabbits begin feeding the garden itself. Because perhaps the most overlooked gift these animals provide isn't meat at all. It's what quietly falls beneath their cages every single day. Unlike many livestock manures requiring months of composting before use, rabbit manure is often called cold manure. It can frequently be applied directly around many garden plants without the burning associated with stronger, fresh manures. Day after day, pellet after pellet, the rabbits quietly manufacture one of the finest natural fertilizers available. Vegetables flourish, forage grows stronger, kitchen scraps return to the rabbits, The cycle becomes beautifully self-sustaining. Nothing feels wasted. Nothing leaves the system unnecessarily. It begins looking less like livestock and more like an ecosystem. But if the American chinchilla proved so productive, so efficient, so practical, why did it nearly disappear? That story may surprise you even more than the rabbit itself. Because the breed wasn't replaced by something dramatically better. It became a victim of changing industries, changing fashions, and a food system that increasingly favored uniformity over resilience. Before we continue, I'd love to hear from you. If you had enough backyard space for one small livestock animal, would you choose chickens, rabbits, ducks, or something else? Let me know in the comments. I read every one, and I'd love to hear what you'd raise first. If the American chinchilla was once one of America's most respected meat rabbits, why did it almost disappear? Most people assume there must have been a fatal flaw. Maybe it was difficult to raise. Maybe it grew too slowly. Maybe another breed simply outperformed it in every category. The truth is much more surprising. The rabbit didn't fail. The market changed. To understand what happened, we have to travel back to the years following World War II. America was changing rapidly. Factories that once produced wartime equipment shifted toward mass consumer production. Agriculture followed the same path. Efficiency became the new goal. Food companies wanted animals that looked identical, processed identically, packaged identically. Uniformity became more valuable than versatility. For commercial rabbit processors, appearance suddenly mattered almost as much as production. White rabbits became the industry favorite. Their pelts accepted dyes more easily. Their carcasses looked cleaner under factory lighting. Processors no longer wanted variation, they wanted consistency. Gradually, breeds like the New Zealand White and the Californian dominated commercial production. Neither was necessarily superior for every family. They simply fit industrial systems more efficiently. Meanwhile, another major industry quietly collapsed: the fur market. For decades, one reason the American chinchilla remained profitable was because every rabbit produced two valuable products: meat and fur. Families could sell both. Nothing went to waste. Then, synthetic fabrics arrived. Artificial materials became cheaper. Fashion changed. Demand for natural rabbit pelts declined dramatically. Suddenly, one entire source of income disappeared almost overnight. Without the fur market supporting heritage breeds, commercial producers focused almost entirely on meat production. Large industrial operations standardized around only a handful of breeds. County fairs slowly displayed fewer American chinchillas. Feed stores ordered fewer breeding pairs. New homesteaders simply stopped seeing them. Generation after generation passed. Eventually, many people forgot the breed had ever existed. By the 1980s, conservation organizations recognized something alarming. The American chinchilla had become critically rare. One of America's greatest production rabbits had quietly moved toward the edge of extinction. Not because families rejected it, but because industrial agriculture no longer needed it. Ironically, the very qualities that made the American chinchilla less attractive to massive commercial operations are exactly what make it valuable for modern homesteads. Unlike highly specialized commercial animals, the American chinchilla remains wonderfully balanced. Excellent mothers, strong foragers, calm personalities, reliable meat production, beautiful fur, long productive lives. Instead of excelling in only one category, it performs exceptionally well across many. That versatility matters enormously for families raising their own food. Perhaps that's why interest has slowly returned. Across North America, small breeders have begun rebuilding old bloodlines. Homesteaders searching for self-sufficiency increasingly choose heritage livestock over highly specialized commercial hybrids. They want animals capable of reproducing naturally, raising healthy young, thriving for years rather than months. The American chinchilla fits that philosophy almost perfectly. Of course, finding one requires knowing exactly what you're looking for. Unfortunately, many rabbits advertised as chinchillas aren't American chinchillas at all. Some are standard chinchillas, others are giant chinchillas. Many are mixed breeds carrying only similar coloring. Fortunately, identifying a genuine American chinchilla becomes much easier once you understand a few key details. First, look at the body. A true American chinchilla should display what breeders call a commercial body type: broad shoulders, deep body, well-rounded hindquarters, powerful muscling. Everything about the rabbit suggests efficient meat production rather than exaggerated size. Next comes the fur. This is where the breed becomes truly distinctive. Gently blow into the coat. Separate the hairs until you can see individual strands. Each guard hair should reveal several distinct color bands. Near the skin, slate blue. Then a pale pearl ring. Next, a darker gray. Finally, a delicate black tip. That unique banding creates the shimmering silver appearance people notice from across the room. It isn't painted onto the rabbit. Every single hair creates the illusion. Experienced breeders often say the coat sparkles differently depending on the sunlight. No photograph fully captures it. Temperament offers another clue. American chinchillas developed alongside family farms, not industrial facilities. Most display calm, steady personalities. They're generally easy to handle. Does often tolerate careful nest inspections surprisingly well. Bucks remain relaxed with regular handling. That quiet temperament becomes especially valuable for beginners. Stress affects reproduction. Calm animals usually perform better. Another reason experienced homesteaders appreciate the breed is longevity. Many highly specialized production animals live relatively short working lives. Heritage rabbits frequently remain productive much longer when properly managed. Healthy does often continue raising quality litters for several years. Instead of replacing breeding stock constantly, families build dependable bloodlines over time. That consistency saves both money and effort. Of course, even the finest rabbit cannot succeed without thoughtful management. Housing doesn't need to be elaborate, but it must be clean, dry, well ventilated. Protection from heat becomes especially important. Surprisingly, cold weather rarely causes serious problems for healthy American chinchillas. Their dense coats handle winter remarkably well. Summer presents the greater challenge. Temperatures above 85 degrees can become dangerous if airflow is poor. Shade, ventilation, fresh water. Those simple details matter more than expensive buildings. Cleanliness matters just as much. Regularly removing waste reduces flies, keeps odors minimal, protects rabbit health. Many experienced keepers establish simple routines rather than waiting for problems to appear. A few minutes each day often prevents hours of work later. Breeding management also rewards patience. New keepers sometimes believe producing more litters automatically means more meat. Experienced breeders usually disagree. Healthy mothers require recovery time. Well-spaced breeding schedules often produce stronger litters over many years. Sustainable production almost always outperforms constant production. The rabbits themselves quietly demonstrate this lesson. Slow, steady, consistent. Perhaps the most remarkable part of raising American chinchillas isn't the meat, or even the economics. It's the independence they quietly provide. Imagine opening your freezer during uncertain times, knowing exactly where the food came from, knowing what it ate, knowing how it was raised. That confidence cannot be purchased at a grocery store. It must be built, one litter at a time, one season after another. Many experienced homesteaders describe something unexpected happening after they begin raising rabbits. Their gardens improve because of the manure. Feed costs decline because forage patches expand each year. Kitchen scraps suddenly become useful rather than waste. Children begin understanding where food actually comes from. The entire property starts functioning differently. Everything connects. The rabbits feed the family. The manure feeds the garden. The garden feeds the rabbits. Very little leaves the system unused. That closed loop once existed on countless small farms across America. Long before industrial agriculture separated livestock from crops, long before fertilizers arrived in plastic bags, families understood that healthy animals and healthy gardens strengthened one another. The American chinchilla quietly fits that older philosophy remarkably well. Perhaps that's why conservation groups continue encouraging responsible breeders to preserve it. Saving a heritage breed isn't simply about protecting history. It's about protecting options. Every livestock breed carries generations of carefully selected genetics. Once those genetics disappear, they're gone forever. Future farmers lose choices they may someday desperately need. Preserving breeds like the American chinchilla protects resilience itself. Because agriculture has always depended upon diversity. Different climates require different animals. Different families need different strengths. One breed can never meet every purpose. The American chinchilla reminds us of that lesson. It may never dominate giant commercial facilities again. It doesn't need to. Its greatest value has always been much closer to home. Inside modest sheds, backyard barns, small homesteads. Quiet places where families care less about industrial efficiency and more about dependable food. Perhaps that's why this remarkable rabbit continues attracting new admirers over a century after it first appeared. Not because it's fashionable, not because it's rare, but because it still does exactly what it was designed to do: feed families, reliably, year after year. Sometimes the greatest innovations aren't the newest ones. Sometimes they're the old ideas we accidentally left behind. The American chinchilla may never become the world's most famous rabbit again, but for the families who discover it, that hardly matters. Because while the rest of the world keeps searching for increasingly complicated ways to produce food, this forgotten breed continues proving that sometimes the simplest solutions have been waiting quietly all along. I'd love to hear from you. Had you ever heard of the American chinchilla before today? Or is this the first time you've discovered this incredible breed? Let me know in the comments below. I read every comment, and I'd love to hear whether this changed the way you think about raising rabbits. If you enjoy discovering forgotten livestock breeds, old farming wisdom, and practical homesteading knowledge that history almost left behind, don't forget to subscribe. There are many more remarkable stories like this waiting to be uncovered, and I can't wait to share them with you.